Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
This week, a key lawmaker digs into the work of protecting vulnerable children, and the state economist provides details on the latest economic outlook. Plus, the governor and legislative leaders react to the latest budget forecast. Stay tuned for this and more on this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. The November budget and economic forecast, a financial snapshot prepared by Minnesota's fiscal agency, projects a budget surplus of $2.4 billion for the current fiscal biennium that runs through June 2025. That number is $808 million more than was projected at the end of the 2023 legislative session. The report attributes the increase to stronger than expected consumer spending, business investment, and employment. Budget Commissioner Aaron Campbell called the report mixed and urged caution because spending is expected to exceed revenues by 2027 under current conditions. Governor Walz and legislative leaders responded to the presentation.
I can assure you our budget will be limited. It will be focused on a responsible bonding bill that includes the entire state and projects that matter. And then it will be very focused on implementing policies that we need to get done. You don't have to guess to the future. My administration's been doing this for 5 years. We've navigated the most volatile economic situation since the Great Depression. And we've done so by balancing the budget with surplus while investing heavily in the middle class and cutting taxes for the middle class. We are going to be responsible, measured, balanced, and we're going to continue to deliver those programs, whether it be meals or whether it be the disability services or whether it be roads and bridges and water treatment plants. All of those things that we know, all those things that we implemented that we know make Minnesota a destination, a place where we said it's the best place to raise your family and your kids. We're seeing that pay off in some of these investments. And I'll go back to it and end with, just to be very clear, Mayo Clinic didn't invest $5 billion out of nostalgia. They didn't invest $5 billion just because they started here. They invested $5 billion because this was the best place to do it. This had the best workforce, the best cluster of things around them, and the best opportunity for them to get the results they want.
State government can't meet all the needs that are out there. There certainly are unmet needs out there. And when we talk about a projected surplus, we're not necessarily saying that all of the needs that exist in the state of Minnesota have been fully funded. And I think Representative Pinto had a phenomenal hearing, I think it was around November 13th, on the needs in childcare that are still out there. So it's wonderful for those families at the Prior Lake New Horizon, and I'm sure other New Horizons, who got a 6 to 7% decrease in their rates. But for some families, that's still a whole bunch of money that they're spending in childcare that it makes things tight for them. Do I wish we could do more on childcare? I certainly do. Do we have the revenue to do it? It doesn't look like right now we have the ability to make an additional commitment. We'll see what the numbers show in February.
Spending is expected to exceed revenues. That's a deficit, my friends. And so that's what we have to get a handle on. And the numbers prove that out if you dig in the document. And I'm just very concerned that with $2.4 billion surplus in the 24-25 year, that then translates into a $2.3 billion structural deficit in the 26-27 year. Like, if we do nothing, we will just barely be keeping the budget in balance. And clearly there are all these requests coming in daily for new spending. We cannot afford it. What we saw in the last session was that the Democrats spent $17.5 billion in surplus. They raised taxes $10 billion. They grew the government by nearly 40%. And now we are seeing the results of that.
You heard the governor even say that he wants to be fiscally conservative. And if we want to be fiscally conservative, we can't build budgets that project a deficit in it from the get-go. And that's what we have here, is budgets that have built-in deficits. So we have to take a look at the spending, figure out what's going to happen there. But I just look at this, look at what's happening to our state budget, and we got to take a different approach to this.
Joining me now in the studio to provide some analysis of the November budget and economic forecast is Minnesota's state economist, Dr. Laura Kalambokidis. Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
The projected surplus of $2.4 billion for fiscal year 24-25 is about $800 million more than was projected near the end of the last legislative session. One of the factors contributing to that growth is that Minnesota's employment level has surpassed the pre-pandemic peak. The labor market, however, remains tight, with the Bureau of Labor Statistics reporting that there are still more than 2 job openings per unemployed worker in the state. So what is the employment outlook?
Yeah, how the employment outlook looks to you, it depends on which side of the table you're on, right? So if you're a worker selling labor, you want that tight labor market so that there are lots of opportunities for you. You feel like you can quit your job. You feel like there are lots of places you can go. But if you're somebody trying to hire people, then you would like that easing that we talked about, some of that easing in the labor market. So what we expect is that we had expected the labor market to ease from what had been unsustainably low levels of unemployment, sort of record low unemployment, record high demand for workers. We've eased somewhat from that, and we do expect it to continue to ease as economic growth slows in the nation as a whole.
Okay. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates 4 times so far in 2023. Jerome Powell, who is the chair of the Federal Reserve, told the New York Times last week that the central bank may be done raising rates as long as the economy and inflation continue to cool. What impact do actions by the Federal Reserve have on Minnesota's economy?
So there are the macroeconomic impacts. So when monetary policy succeeds to slow the economy, bring inflation down, that helps Minnesota because we are, we then benefit from lower inflation. But at the same time, the way they're doing that is by raising interest rates, or the way they have been doing that is by raising interest rates. And so that's something that really hits both businesses and households in the pocketbook.
And it probably has similar effects all across the United States. Like, this is sort of a central bank decision, and then there's a trickle down, and it does impact every single state in the nation. Is that right? That's
right. And Minnesota is very closely tied to the U.S. economy. And so as the U.S. economy goes, pretty much that's how our economy is going to go too.
Consumer spending and business investment grew faster than was anticipated in the February forecast. A mild recession had been anticipated and it never materialized. So what do you attribute the fact that the recession didn't happen? And is continued growth in spending by individuals and businesses likely into the future?
We had surprises all year, economic surprises all year. U.S. employment grew faster than expected. Consumer spending was more resilient than expected. Business investment more resilient. So it surprised a lot of economists throughout the year. Some of that may be that there was more excess saving at the time of the pandemic. Especially high-income households were able to save more. And low-income households seem to have spent down the excess savings that they made during the pandemic with pandemic unemployment insurance benefits and the stimulus checks. But high-income households were able to hold on to some of that money and are spending it now. And so that has made consumer spending more resilient. Is it likely to continue? Probably not at that high rate. The expectation is that it all slows down because that's what the Fed is trying to do, is get this economy to slow down so that inflation comes down.
Now, I do recall reading that credit card debt has increased among consumers. And so how does that play in?
Yeah, so that's the way the middle and lower income households are continuing to spend, is by now turning to credit card debt. So from a macroeconomic perspective, well, that's good. You got consumer spending going. But from a household perspective, it's not. It puts people at higher risk.
There's also the issue of inflation, which is impacting not just consumers and businesses, but also the budget forecast. Yeah. Due to a law change last legislative session, the forecast must now take into consideration the impact of inflation in future budget projections, beginning with this one. From an economist perspective, how does this impact the outlook?
So it was a good thing to explicitly put inflation into the spending forecast so that we have some parity on both sides of the ledger, because inflation does affect the revenue forecast. So that's good. It's more complicated than people realized it was going to be, but it affects the budget forecast because it gives budget decision makers a better, clearer, more accurate picture of what the financial situation is. And so I think it is, it's causing people to have a little more caution than they might have had it not been in there.
So, for example, had it not been in there, then the outlook for the next biennium, 26-27, would have shown more of a surplus than the roughly 80 million that it currently is showing. Is that right?
That's right. And now, for many years, the budget division has been presenting the inflation number. So it hasn't been officially in the expenditure estimates, but they say, and here's what the inflation would be if we were going to put it in. So that information has been available for a while. So I think, but yes, it would have been a rosier picture.
And it does change the conversation.
I think it does.
Yeah. It wasn't mentioned in the budget presentation, but the report notes that a combination of higher interest rates, rising home prices, and limited inventory are challenging affordability. A study cited notes that Minnesota ranks 20th in affordability. And being a Midwestern state that is traditionally more affordable, how does this impact Minnesota's outlook?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that matters a lot to Minnesota right now is labor force growth. Like, we need people in the state. We need people to see Minnesota as the place where you want to come and raise your family and live and work. And housing affordability for working people is something that can be attractive. And so it's an interplay. This housing affordability affects how attractive the state looks for people who are looking to move from more expensive coastal cities, for instance. So it's been an advantage for us in the past that the Twin Cities has been more affordable, for instance, than New York or Chicago even. And so if there's some more compression where we become less affordable, they become more affordable, then we lose a little bit of that advantage. So I see it as an attractiveness and labor market issue, and then in addition for affordable housing on the lower end of the spectrum, it's a justice and housing issue. So something definitely to keep an eye on.
The report states that increased immigration, delayed retirement, and improved access to child care could support greater job growth, leading to more potential upside in the forecast. What are some of the potential downsides?
So we talked about inflation and monetary policy and how we think we know what's happening here, that we've been surprised this year. So that interplay between inflation and interest rates and what the Fed does, that's risky. The Fed is trying to achieve something that they've never done before, which is this mythical soft landing following a recession or following an inflationary period. And so that's a risk. And then there are international risks. So conflict in the Middle East, conflict in Ukraine, economic volatility in China. These are all things that if they are exacerbated or more prolonged, they can affect the U.S. economic outlook.
Dr. Laura Kalambokidis, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
The Legislative Task Force on Child Protection was created in 2015 to identify additional areas within the child welfare system that need to be addressed by the legislature. Senator Nicole Mitchell is the newly appointed co-chair of the group, and she joins me to talk about the work before them. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You come to this role with experience. You have volunteered with domestic violence and homeless shelters. You have been a court-appointed special advocate, and you are a foster parent. What grade would you give Minnesota right now for how it's handling the protection of children?
I would probably settle on somewhere from high C into the B range, because that question encompasses a variety of things. For example, our mortality rate for children is actually slightly lower, which is fortunate, but we would like that number obviously to go down even more and effectively be zero. But some of the ways we fund could be much better compared to other states. So adding up all the little pieces of things where some things might be a D and some things might be an A, I think that's probably where I would settle.
Okay. The Star Tribune has published a series of reports over the last month or so on Minnesota's child protection system. The series is called In Harm's Way. It provides heart-wrenching examples of how children have suffered and in some cases died in Minnesota's child protection system. Is this perhaps a relevant jumping off point for the work of the task force that you're co-chairing?
Well, absolutely. I think it informs some of the work we're doing because I come from a news background, and so I love quality work to dig into some of those issues because it helps give us another viewpoint in addition to what we're already getting. So I think some of the questions asked, like Minnesota is one of the few places where more of child protection is handled at the county versus the state, and that came up in some of the articles. Advises us that that is an intersection that maybe we want to look at more, not necessarily maybe changing it, but are there ways that the state can take some of that pressure off the counties at the very least?
Poverty, I'm sorry, I'm going to skip around a bit. Poverty can be a factor in how children are doing. So addiction and substance use disorder are often factors in the removal of children. Families interacting with child protection services are likely experiencing a multitude of problems. These are complex situations. Is prevention even possible?
I absolutely think it is, and that would be our goal. So the majority of cases where child protection is involved are neglect cases. Obviously, severe abuse is a completely different thing, but if it's neglect because there aren't enough food resources in the home or there isn't stable housing, things of that nature, we can actually help families mitigate where child protection would even need to get involved if we're helping provide that safety net in society. So I think we actually did a lot of good work in this last legislative session because free school breakfasts and lunches, that helps with the hunger piece, and more funding for some of our shelters that provide food, more money into low-income housing, more money invested in childcare, because if families can't access childcare or afford childcare, they might make poor childcare decisions that put their children in more danger. Those are just a couple of examples. There's also a lot of kids that come out of disability into child protection scenarios, and so when we can invest in that, we don't want it to just be a child's removed because the parents are struggling dealing with mental or neurological issues. We would rather support them so that they can keep their child in their home, but also, not have those stress factors.
Well, and that's one thing that you mentioned in the hearing, that children with disabilities are more likely to end up in foster care. And so it is for those underlying reasons that you suggested, just the strain on the family and the inability to care over time for that child?
Right. So one of the things I got into when I was fostering is respite care. So some counties will offer respite care so that a family with an autistic child, for example, can have them go to another safe family 1 week in a month so that they can just have a break, because if you're dealing with that high stress situation all the time. And so I still have a young man that has been with my family for 4 years. He comes 1 week in a month, and that gives his family just a chance to reset, can be such a huge benefit. But also other services and things like that, that can mean the family can have those down moments and not get to the point where they might have to have a removal.
You mentioned this. I'd like to go into a little more depth. Minnesota is one of 9 states that does not have a state-run system for child protection. Instead, as you said, counties administer child protection services, and it's only law enforcement and courts who are authorized to remove children. Do you think this needs to change, or is this serving the state well at this point?
I think there's some tweaks that we could possibly make to the system. Right now, because of the way it's set up and it being county-based, counties actually have to foot a lot of the child protection bill. And because of that, and different counties have different density with population, land terrain. In some counties, you're nowhere near the services you might need, or the counties might not be able to fund them to the same level. And our goal in Minnesota should be, it doesn't matter if you're a child in one part, rural or urban, or in one part of the state or the other. you should be able to get the same level of care. So whether we do that by better facilitating the counties or moving some of the services to the state is something I think we definitely need to look into, because right now it's not even everywhere you go in Minnesota.
So there's a funding piece, and as you say, needs are perhaps different in different parts of the state, but the services are important regardless. Should the county services, should they have more discretion? As I said, it's law enforcement only or the courts that can remove children, but should the Child Protective Services also have more authority in these decisions?
That's something I think we need to look at, because if you heard some of the testimony today, the social workers pretty much said, we're not sure we want that authority, but the police have also said that that puts a big burden on us. So one component is training, that we know that a lot of our officers in a lot of places don't have a lot of training, at least ongoing, in these removals and kind of the process and things of that nature. So if we keep it on that level, make sure they have the training to do this in the least traumatic way for a child involved, and that we are appropriately removing when we need to, but also maintaining the family when we can. So I'm not sure if we change who the remover is, but doing it in a really mindful way.
Finally, babies are not born with instruction manuals as much as maybe we would like them to be. And family cultures can vary widely. Representative Hassan, who is a member of the task force, worked as a social worker for a time, and she spoke about systemic racism, and she called Minnesota's child protection system broken. Native American and African American children continue to be more likely to be removed from their families. What level of bias is there in Minnesota? Is it inherent? Does it really need to be addressed?
I do think there is some inherent bias, and it's something I know that there's been mindful conversations to try and address. But you don't want, for example, a white family that has food insecurity to be able to get resources and maintain their family unit, while a black family has a removal for the exact same thing. We want to make sure everyone has the same level footing, but also if there does need to be a removal, if there's physical abuse, for example, that we're also removing at the same rate. So I think that's something that we've tried to engage more of our partners. And one of the things that I've thought about is that perhaps we should get together as an advisory council so that we can bring together some of these different partners, so that any legislation that comes out of this going forward, or even funding for certain projects, is done in a mindful way where we've talked to all the agencies and all those invested partners, and make sure any change we make doesn't just fix one problem to create another, and does keep that kind of equity piece involved.
Senator Nicole Mitchell, thank you so much.
Thank you.
A new state law ensures that the Capitol's electrolier will shine when lawmakers are in session. Here's a look at the history of the unique chandelier. The chandelier is one of the unique features of the state capitol. What makes it so popular?
It's in the center of the building, and so if you look at this big round space called the rotunda, it's one of the things you'll notice when you walk into this space. It's directly above you, 142 feet above, and it's really kind of, this rotunda is a showplace of the state capitol, so the idea is you see this beautiful light fixture that has 92 light bulbs inside of it that is really a spectacular part of the decoration. And that was what Cass Gilbert, the architect, had intended for this space, was to have this beautiful round space for the public and see all the beautiful architectural detail and artwork and light fixture in this case.
At the time, electricity was a new technology, and the chandelier was actually called electrolier. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. Yeah, this was really an important part of this building's design, was to have wired electricity throughout the building. There was a power plant that generated all that electricity across the street from the Capitol, and you have to remember, this was a place to really proclaim and brag about Minnesota's technology and prosperity and progress. And what better place to have that than in your state capitol? So at that time, a chandelier is a fixture that has candles technically, and we still call it a chandelier today. But at that time, they were bragging that this was an electrolyre because electricity was so new, so it had a real value to really enhance the understanding that technology was probably a new thing and an important part of this overall design of the Capitol.
Is there some symbolism to its placement and the fact that we're the North Star state and it's shaped like a globe?
Well, we do have the North Stars in the floor of the rotunda that represent the Minnesota, the North Star state, our state motto. If you look at the ceiling above here, it has a blue panels to represent the sky. There's 12 zodiac symbols and huge murals, 9-foot murals that represent the constellations. So some people do look at that chandelier or that electrolyre as a symbol of the North Star. And part of that is the importance of the state symbol as a North Star state was it's a guiding light. And so other states can follow Minnesota's lead, and that's the symbolism behind that North Star. So that could be a very appropriate way of looking at that electrolyre as a North Star.
How challenging is the maintenance of it?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive when you look at how high it is, and that's the question people will often ask on tours is how do you maintain that? There's over 48,000 crystal beads, 92 light bulbs inside that chandelier, and when you stand below here on the first, second, or third floor, you might be able to see there's 3 doors on hinges that can be lifted up. Well, you don't have to climb all the way up 140 feet to access that. It can be lowered on a winch and a chain, and then it gets accessed down on the first floor. And we can go in there, clean the crystal beads, change out the light bulbs. And so it's not as complicated as a lot of people might think it is. But once again, it's part of that overall design. You put in a beautiful light fixture, you are going to have to maintain it, so you have to figure out a way to get it up and down.
Is it true that it's done with the remote control now?
It is, yeah. Historically, it had a hand-cranked winch. So you can imagine that was somebody's job to lower that down to change the light bulbs. And now it's all wireless and mechanical, so you don't have to have as much of the manpower effort to raise and lower that chandelier.
If people want to see the chandelier lit, when are the times of year that it's lit?
Yeah, we have it every year. It's turned on for Statehood Day, May 11th. Is our state birthday, so we became the 32nd state, May 11th, 1858. So if you want to come and be guaranteed of seeing that turned on, that will be one day. We have started the tradition of turning it on for the first day of legislative session each year, so that's something that will be turned on that day. And there's state events and public gatherings that sometimes at Chandelier
like the grand
will be turned
opening?
on. Right, just in August of 2017 we had the grand reopening of the Capitol, and that chandelier was turned on each of those days.
Is there a reason why the chandelier is only turned on periodically?
I think part of that goes back just to the maintenance part of it, because it's a lot of work to raise and lower it. You know, even though it's automatically can be done, there's still a lot of wear and tear on the chain and the fixture, so it's not something you want to do every day, bring it up and down. So it really is, looking at the maintenance part of it. If you turn it on every day, it's often difficult, to bring it up and down to change a few light bulbs. And so the other part of that too is that has such a long tradition of not being on every day that it's something that people look forward to seeing. So if it were on every day, it would be like, well, that's a really neat part of the building, but there loses some of that specialness of being unique to the building and the size and seeing it turned on just a few times a year.
Join us again next week as we delve into more topics affecting Minnesotans. I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thanks for watching.